Dr. Payne's framework defines poverty as the extent to which a person does without. So I most often think of financial poverty, not having the money to be able to afford or do, but there are many, many types of poverty, like financial, emotional, physical. The list just goes on and on. And then there's also generational and situational poverty. So I most often think of generational as being more severe, maybe because it's almost like a cycle that families kind of get into and they get stuck and can't get out of. So Dr. Payne says that students in poverty don't come to school knowing how to speak formally, how to act and behave, and how to learn, basically. They don't know how to acquire knowledge. So there are several things that teachers can do to help these students be able to succeed. The first one is form relationships. We as teachers have to have strong relationships with every student, and that helps us know their needs, where they excel, as well as their interests and dislikes. We can also teach students to speak in formal register. So this can be done by role-playing scenes that a student might have in their daily life, and just teaching them how to translate something from casual to formal. You can also teach students to ask questions, because this goes back to them, students in poverty, not knowing how to learn, how to acquire knowledge. So teach them to ask questions. And then that kind of flows into using rubrics. So use rubrics when you grade, and let students use rubrics to self-evaluate. So rubrics are so simple because, they're laid out exactly what you need to know. So if you need to know how to succeed, it's there. If you need to know how to fail, it's there. It's very cut and dry. And then also teachers should have relationships with students' families. Let parents know what's going on. Communicate with parents in a way that's best for them. And also, I think, translate. So if you're dealing with a family that doesn't speak English as their first language, translate it for them so that they have access to all the information that they need access to. I was surprised by the statistics that I expected African Americans to have the highest percent of people in poverty, but they were actually just the second highest, which is still not great. But Native Americans came in at 40%, and that was just surprising to me. I think that's a people group that we don't think of a lot. And then, not surprisingly, whites and Asian Americans were on the lower end of that at about 12% each. I was also very surprised by the doll test. I don't know how, I've never heard of that before, but I was very interested when watching that and seeing the impact that had on Brown versus the Board of Education, proving that segregation had a negative psychological effect on African American children. And, basically these kids were given the choice between a white doll and a black doll and asked questions about them. And more often than not, they picked the white doll for being the good doll and the black doll for being the bad doll. And then I was very, very surprised in the video Girl Like Me, where this young girl redid that experiment in modern day and basically got the same results. I was expecting to see this huge change and how far we'd come, and it just really surprised me that basically nothing has changed. And then I was also very intrigued by Jane Elliott's class divided experiment that she did. So not only did it affect kids right then and there in her classroom, but years later when they were talked to again, they still remember how they felt that day when she segregated them based on their eye color, and discriminated against them and kind of made them feel the way that colored people feel every day. And that was just very interesting and very surprising to me. And also, even when she did that experiment with adults, to see their reactions and that they basically felt the same way, I was very interested in that, and I really enjoyed watching that. And that's something that I will definitely take into the classroom with me to maybe help students see how their words and actions can affect other people, even if there's nothing wrong with these other people. Just because an adult says so doesn't mean that it is. So this was my favorite module by far. I feel like I really learned a lot, and I really enjoyed all the resources that we had access to.